There we go. All right. So, how's everyone doing on this Tuesday?
Great.
Great. Monique, you are not convincing.
Oh, I'm great. Been a long day.
Yes, a long day, but thank you for making time to come and share the book club experience with us all. It's really exciting to have both parts of our book club merge, and of course, to welcome our author, Mita Mallick, who I will introduce in a second. I still see some people filtering in, so we'll just let them get settled. As always, this is your conversation, so I will begin with the questions that you submitted in advance, and then at any point you can write in the chat or raise your virtual hand, raise your real hand, whatever works, and we'll get to hear all of your thoughts and share hers as well. Perfect. Okay. So let's start this formally. So, for all of you who are watching the playback, I'd like to welcome you to our book club. This is the final session with our book, The Devil Emails at Midnight. And we are thrilled to have author Mita Mallick here to share her thoughts and answer all of your questions. Over the past couple of months, we've had two groups running in parallel with some really juicy discussions about what makes a bad boss, what makes a good boss, what can we do about it, and we're excited to dive in. So Mita has graciously agreed to play a little game with me to kick things off, to get her warmed up. Um, so basically, Mita, I'm just going to do some rapid fire, whatever's coming off the tip of your tongue kind of question.
Gosh, all right, buckle up. Here we go.
Don't worry, I will start off easy with you.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. Early bird or night owl?
I used to be a night owl, and my children forced me to become an early bird. So now I'm an early bird.
Yeah,
Yep.
the case for most of us.
Yes.
The Breakfast Club or Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Oh gosh. I have not really. Oh God, this is recorded. I haven't watched either movie. I'm gonna.
As
Uh,
I said it, I was thinking I'm really aging myself by
no,
asking.
I'm gonna. I'll guess I'll say Breakfast Club. I don't, yeah. Okay.
Both highly recommended for
Yes. Yes.
future.
Yes. Okay.
Which emoji best captures your energy today?
I'm into the melty smiley face as we enter. I'm sitting in the US right now, and we're having US Thanksgiving holiday on Thursday. It's just yeah, the end of the year. I feel like I'm just sort of, the melty smiley face. I'll have to say.
Love it, love it. What's your go-to hype song before a big meeting?
Hmm. There's a few, but right now I'm still really loving Sia, Unstoppable, Beyonce, Run the World. Yeah, there's a bunch. Pink Fire. I could go on and on.
Powerful playlist. What would your autobiography be titled?
Mm. Work in progress?
Is that next?
Maybe. We'll see.
You heard it here first, ladies. What's one leadership buzzword you wish we could retire forever?
Mm. I always hated the feedback of like, you need to be more strategic. Let's be more strategic. We need to see more
What does
strategy.
that
Like, what
mean?
does that mean? I'll put that in the you need more gravitas, executive presence category. All
Mm,
those terms. Retire, retire, retire. Yes.
yeah, for sure. So on the flip side, what is a workplace trend that you would like to reinforce?
I wish we had more humility in our workplaces. Humility and kindness. Yes.
Absolutely. In what moment did you consider yourself to be a leader?
In what moment? I don't know if there was a moment. I think it gradually just happened. I can't think of like one moment where I was like, I'm a leader. I think we're all, I don't know. I think in many ways I had a lot of leadership qualities when I was younger growing up and sort of found my way.
Beautiful. And last but not least, how in the world did you land up with so many bad bosses?
That's a great question. I was on Chris Doe's podcast recently, and he asked me this question, and he said, I don't know if I want to ask you this. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I said, I know what you're going to ask me. It's that moment. And I looked at him and I said, I think I attracted a lot of these bad bosses because had fawning tendencies. I was a people pleaser. I was bullied a lot as a child. And so as an adult, I think I didn't know what healthy relationships looked like. I'm still working with my therapist on that, but I do think that I attracted a lot of these individuals or were attracted to a lot of these places and spaces. Yeah.
Interesting. We're going to definitely go deeper on that in a few minutes. But first, I want to congratulate you on the success of your book, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, LA Times bestselling author, corporate change maker, extensive career in marketing and HR. Um, the first time I saw you was actually on a podcast for your other best-selling book, which is called Reimagine Inclusion: Debunking 13 Myths to Transform Your Workplace. So, can you tell us a little bit about the transition from your first work of art into your current work of art?
Yes. Well, I didn't get to say thank you all for having me. Like, time is a precious commodity. It means so much that you bought the book, that you read the book, that you're discussing the book, and that you're spending your Tuesday evening with me. So I'm just honored. So let me start there. So thank you very much. Why did I write the second book? This is being recorded, but maybe not widely distributed. So I'll be honest about the second book. My first book did really well. Reimagine Inclusion, Debunking 13 Myths to Transform Your Workplace comes out October 2023, does gangbusters well. And my team gathers me to say, want you to write a sequel to this book. And I said to them, I'm not going to write a sequel because I believe Trump will become president again in the US. This is 2023. And so, no, I don't have a crystal ball. No, I'm not a fortune teller. I just study people and culture. And I was born and raised in the US, the proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents. And just watching some of the things I was seeing and hearing and studying, that's what I believed. I believed there was going to be a backlash against diversity, equity, inclusion, and I believed he would become president again. And so I thought to myself, how do I reach people in a different way? And that was the thought that kept spiraling in my head for the second book. And the truth is, bosses make or break inclusion, right? And so I thought about, I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I thought about when they were younger and I was trying to get them to eat vegetables, I would blend it into the pasta. So I thought, how do I talk about inclusion in a different way? And so that was really the part of the genesis of this book, was that I wanted to reach people in a different way. And I did not think a sequel to the first book would land and I wish I was wrong, but would land in a 2025.
Yeah, well, definitely the DEI undercurrent is obvious, and it was something that was widely discussed within our groups. Um, on that note, we're talking about the midnight emailer and the attention
Sure.
stealer, the credit thief, and we all recognize these archetypes from our past, from the stories from our friends, our family. And I wanted to know, which of the 13 boss types do you think leaders least realize they're exhibiting? And why is that blind spot so dangerous?
That's a great question. If I had to pick one, I'm going to pick the cheerleader. And that is the one around toxic positivity and how dangerous it is. And since you've all read it, I won't go into the chapter of the book, except to say, I think when you're sitting in a marketplace, and I'll talk about the US context for a second, which has global ramifications, whether that's tariffs, government shutdown, what's happening with AI, layoffs. I mean, Verizon having huge layoffs like the week before the US Thanksgiving holiday and more to come. All of these things with your goals changing. If you're not going to be in the trenches with your team and be honest about the fact that resources have been cut, budgets down, but oh, I still expect you. Yeah, you can do it. We're still going to exceed revenue at the end of the quarter. You're like, no, it's not going to happen. And that's so dangerous and it leads to burnout because you're surrounding yourself with yes people and you have these goals that just aren't attainable for your team. And imagine what it would look like if you just said, "Hey, Mita, I know that we said we were going to get to 100%. And I'm going to be realistic and say that that's not going to happen. What would it take to get to 85 or 90?" And I wish more of us were having those conversations.
Yeah, that transparency is so critical. And I think, that theme probably pops up in a lot of the chapters as well. So looking back, how would you have done things differently?
How would I have done things differently? I try not to, especially with having lost my dad suddenly, I don't try to lead my life with a lot of regret. So if I hadn't experienced all these things, I wouldn't be here with you on this Tuesday evening talking about the book that I wrote. So I don't know. One of the things I have thought a lot about is that how I could have done a better job of setting boundaries for myself, not just in my personal life, but at work, because you teach people how to treat you. And I wrote a piece for Entrepreneur Magazine for National Daughters Day earlier this year, which I'm happy to send the link out to you all afterwards. But it was a letter to my daughter about how I hope that she will stand up for herself in the workplace, and particularly around the pain of being renamed Muhammad, which even when I talk about it today, years later, I still cringe about that. But what could I have done differently is my question. And I do think that, unfortunately, whether it's the playground or the conference room table, bullies can sense fear and bullies can target people based on boundaries that they're not setting. And so if you can look that person in the eye that first time and say, "My name is Mita. This is my name." And that's not easy to do, but I hope that she and all of her children will do that as they grow up in the workplace.
Yeah, I do have a question from Saba that was submitted earlier. I hope you remember what it was because we were emailing them in as we were reading. If not, I will remind you, Saba, but if you want to open your mic and jump in.
Yes, hi Mita. Um, Thank you for joining us. Yes, so my question was that the experiences that you've had with the bad bosses, did you ever feel that that also had to do something, or because you were a woman of color?
It's hard to separate that. Even when I wrote this book, I was like, huh, well, it is my lived experience as a woman of color going through all these things. And so I'm sure some of it is, I'm sure some of it's not, but it's hard to decouple that because it's my identity. Like I don't know what it would be like if I had experienced those as a white woman. Maybe it would, or a white man. Maybe I'd be writing the same book. I don't think so. I don't think so. There's certainly some, especially with, I think, the obviously the chapter about being renamed and microaggressions. I also think the idea of, loyalty at all costs and the chapter on Tony Soprano, which I don't get into as much, but I didn't have space in this book. The idea of going from an office pet to an office threat, which is well documented research, that's a phenomenon that happens to Black women.
Hmm,
I believe can also happen to other women of color. And so it's a great question.
thank you. I have one more question. Do I have the permission to ask? Yeah. Okay. Just this is my second last question. If you could rewrite one chapter uh, from a more nuanced or balanced perspective, reflecting both good and bad leadership traits side by side, which one would it be, and why would you choose that?
Rewrite one of the chapters in the book? That's interesting.
Yes, like so reflect on the bosses.
Gosh, now I need to pull up my own book and see. Um, the one that it's interesting. The one that I thought would be one of the more boring ones that I still get a lot of interest in is the boss who fell asleep, not the boss, that one too, but the boss who hovered like a helicopter and enjoyed redoing all of our work.
Hmm.
Getting asked the question on like, what's the difference between isn't micromanaging just holding people accountable? That's a really interesting one because I can either in my best days be holding people accountable or on my worst days be a micromanager. And so I think there's a balance in that. So I love that you asked that question. And the whole point of the book, when people ask me, it's like the number one question is like, how do I know if I'm a bad boss? And it's like, well, we're all going to be a bad boss. And so if you can just embrace that and understand that it's not a static state, that it ebbs and flows depending on what's happening at work and in your personal life. You can be like right before my dad passed away, I was in my great boss era. Like I was in a career high and it comes crashing down. But I love that question of like, any of these traits can actually swing to a positive or a negative. Thank you for
Right.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Seba. Yizzy, I think you had a question along those lines, actually.
You're the best at this. Thank you so much, Mita, for coming to share all this with us. And I don't know if you saw my face, probably had subtitles on it. But as you're sharing the fact that it's a pendulum and that it's like there could be an extreme that is good and an extreme that is bad, it makes me realize that those nuances we don't get to necessarily read them through the book. Like it's and that's related to the question that I had, that is also what Saba was asking, is if you had any experience looking at a micromanager, for example, that had to do it because that's what that team member needed at that point. So have you seen that in
Yeah,
your
and I
experience?
think one of the things, so if I take a step back and you would ask me this question at the beginning on like why I wrote this book. One of the other reasons I wrote this book was because I've been both marketing and HR executive, and I had been studying the marketplace to notice that business sales are declining. I'm actually really excited that you all have a book club and you decided to read my book because a lot of people don't do book clubs around business books, but they're starting to more and more, particularly in corporations and communities like yourself. But fiction is skyrocketing. And I don't know about you, but I'm Netflix binging a little bit more these days, given the state of the world. And so I thought, how do I like get people to pick up a business book that's juicy and has great stories and it's hilarious and heartbreaking? It's not a novel, it's a business book. But part of that as a writer was to have these like extreme stories that you're like, yeah, a little bit exaggerated, right? But a lot of them, all of them, talk to my mom every day. Mom has the receipts. They're all true stories. And mom will remember some of them and say, you should have added that detail. And I was like, yeah, mom, I should have, right? So, but the point is that somebody, context and situation matters. I could be a really good boss for you and a bad boss for Anna, right? I could be a good boss for you because you could be earlier in your career, you could be newer to the organization, you could be moving divisions, and you want more handholding, more coaching, right? More direct teaching. Whereas Anna, who's more seasoned, is like, stop micromanaging me. I know how to do these things. I don't need directions. I don't need you to tell me how to do it A to Z. I need you to tell me what the output is and let me get to the output. Let me do it because you've trusted me with that. So that's also, I love that question because it's, and part of any relationship is you meet people halfway or you try to, right? I'm not going to become you. You're not going to become me. But that's what's really tough about being a leader. It's not one size fits all.
Yes, and I think you answered a little bit of the other question that I had, that was if all the stories were true. So we can ask your mom about it.
They are. But you know what? I've disguised details, right? So there's a kernel of truth to all of them. But I would tell you, there's three stories in here that people would recognize. I don't think the people who did those things would recognize them. And that is the sheriff, Medusa, and Tony Soprano. Those are pretty specific. And I
Wow,
would be mad if they recognized themselves in them. It's- they're true.
thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
so
thanks for
much.
the question.
So we have a question from one of our sessions, and I think it's a nice follow-up to what you were saying. How has remote work or hybrid work impacted inclusion in the office, whether it helped or hurt strong leaders? Because obviously this shift has changed the workplace significantly.
I think in many ways it helped. It even the playing field. It actually, in some ways, I feel like deepened relationships. And what do I mean by that? There's so much intimacy on screen. I would not be sitting this close to any of you if we were doing this at someone's kitchen table or a conference room table, right? There's much more distance, right? But like when you're in these one-on-one meetings, like you can actually, I think, use them to your advantage. I also feel it's very interesting. Someday when we all meet in person, you'll be surprised that I'm not 6'1", I'm 5'1.5". And people are very surprised when they meet me in person. They're like, you have a real tall Zoom personality. And I'm like, huh, maybe I feel like I have more permission to take up space in this box, right? But I do think what's happened is, I mean, a few things with, I think, we all sort of fell in, and I talk about this in the first book, we all fell into these ways of working from the pandemic. And there was really no structure or process, like what is remote and hybrid and full time in the office and what's the technology and how do you actually connect people? I think people are still commuting now 2 hours away and all sitting on Zoom in a conference room, right? And they're like not even in the same office. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that or are experiencing that. Proximity bias is something to watch out for if you're leading distributed teams. It's like I'm sitting next to Mita all the time, so it's really easy to grab a coffee or a drink or lunch with her when, Monique is sitting in another country and I have to make real intention effort to get time with her just to check in and say hello. I also think the flexibility that it's provided is really crumbling, right? For not just a broad sweep for women, caregivers, anyone who wants flexibility, right? Anybody,
Yes,
individuals with disabilities, right? I don't need to tell you all this, but that's where I think it's really damaging. I think particularly if you look at the numbers for employment for individuals with disabilities during the pandemic and how that skyrocketed given the flexibility of being able to work from your home versus what that looks like now with a very strong 5 days a week return to office culture.
thank you. I have a lot more questions here on my list, but does anyone want to jump in?
I
Just
would love to jump in.
go ahead, Monique.
First of all, I bought your book and the Audible on Audible, so it's funny to hear your voice in real life
Oh,
after listening
wonderful.
to it on
Thank you.
Audible. It's the same identical, and so super cool.
It's me,
Mm,
surprise. Yeah.
Fabulous. I have a question that has nothing to do with, okay, my question is the writing process, right? So as you're sitting and writing, what is your process and how do you let it all out and without the fear of offending somebody or what's your self-talk about that?
I will offend someone. I had like a 1-star review, and I was like, a 1-star review? How bad could this book be that you would give it a 1-star review? By the way, if you love the book, please leave it a brief 5-star review on Amazon. But I always think like I wouldn't do that. I get a lot of books. I'm very privileged and lucky. Yes, I've earned it. People send me a lot of books, and I don't leave. If I don't feel like it's a 5-star, I'm not gonna leave a review.
No, I mean more like the people you're writing about.
Oh, that's what you meant versus how the
Yeah,
market of it. Oh, huh. Well, you know what? I've had a very long career at this point. I'm not
right.
worried. And I've disguised things enough, like I said, but there are three that I probably didn't disguise that well enough. I mean, those scenarios weren't disguised. Everything else around it was, if that makes sense. But I'm not that they're true and it happened. And I hope it inspires someone to recognize that that's happened to them and it's not okay. And if you see it happening to someone else, you should intervene.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Monique. So next up, I have a question about boundaries. So Mita, how do you personally decide what boundaries are non-negotiable, especially in a fast-paced environment that rewards constant availability? What advice do you have for women trying to achieve something resembling balance? Maybe those are two questions. So the first one is about non-negotiables and boundaries, and the second one is about balance.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm the notorious work on vacation. Like, I'm embarrassed to say, I have worked most of my vacations. That's on me. But it is this, what's our greatest human fear is that we become irrelevant. Right. And so it's like I always on demand, always available, which will only lead to burnout. So the context matters, your situation matters. You need to, I'm not saying it's like, if you've got an innovation failing and you're trying to turn it around, that's probably not the moment or the quarter to start setting really hard boundaries, right? going to be honest, it matters, like what's happening in the environment and the business. But you teach people how to treat you. So if you're available on vacation, don't be upset. Like you're the one who started it, right? I was the last vacation I took when I was, I left my full-time role in December to focus on the book, and maybe I'll go back to, a full-time job, but right now I'm focused on my second book. And it was the first time I remember in 2024 where I took a vacation and I did not check email or phone. But my boss ended up texting me because I had trained her that way, even though I wasn't. I know you're on vacation, but could you? And I was like, I'm just gonna wait to respond. Like it was like a, 9:30 at night. Right. But I had trained her that way. So I think you have to retrain people on expectations, right? And the question is, it goes back to the midnight piece. Are you really doing your best work if you're constantly burning yourself out? I think the key differentiator for people leading teams is like, how are you going to lead people through drive periods? How are you going to drive hard because you have to, but then how are you going to rest, recover, pause, and drive again? It's just not sustainable. We're not AI agents. We're not bots, we're humans. And so how do you lean into actually the performance piece of it, which is really actually people ask me like, what's the one thread that you see through all these bad bosses? And like anytime someone is acting badly, behaving poorly, it's because they're not taking care of themselves on some level. And so if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others.
Yeah, I'm guilty of the midnight emailing. I don't expect a response, but it's,
No,
if it's on my brain, I got to unload it because I think I probably have to use a scheduler a little more often, but working on it, working on it.
yeah.
Anyone else have questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Um, so on the piece of, sort of in the theme of self-awareness and accountability, do you think bad leadership is caused more by individuals or by the organization? And why? So how much of this is kind of in our in our past or in our culture, in our conditioning about leadership?
That's a great question. I think that a lot of systems we operate in enable and protect this behavior. And I think for too long, a paycheck every 2 weeks was permission for people to treat you badly and that we would put up with it. I think social media has changed. I think the world has changed. There's no longer, loyalty is dead in the workplace. That employer-employee contract doesn't exist anymore. Like you're going to pay me every 2 weeks and you're going to provide me with a pension and health insurance. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to get a Rolex after 30 years of service, which used to happen. It happened to my uncle. Like all this crazy, this doesn't happen anymore. And in return, I will give you my unwavering loyalty commitment. I will take that paycheck. And even if you abuse me on some level, I'm okay with it because I know my job's secure. Right. And so that I think that system is right now all crumbling. And I think on top of that, you have social media. You have over the last 10 years, 15 years, Glassdoor, LinkedIn. People have a microphone now. They can go and complain about these. I mean, I wrote a book about it, right? So you can go and complain about these things. But I do think it's like, the more I've done this work, it's like there are the system that allows this behavior to push.
Yeah.
Go back to Medusa, like and how long she stayed there. It's like, because if someone's behaving badly, enough of us should be able to call that person out with kindness and say this behavior is not acceptable, have them course corrected or they move on. But that doesn't happen enough.
Yeah, I feel that a lot of employees just complain to each other
Yeah.
and they don't actually go and step up and say something because basically they're likely just afraid of losing their job if they express themselves, honestly.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time from people I know. This woman who's working in an engineering field, who most of her colleagues are men. She calls someone out who is bullying her and being very, very rude to her in front of all of her other colleagues. Guess who got let go? She got let go and he stayed,
Yeah.
even though several complaints, people came to her and said, I've experienced the same thing with this man, but
I think, Cynthia, it
they
goes
weren't going to
back
go
to
and complain
the,
as well because then they would lose their job. But personally, I would leave that company because it's not right. I would basically, if I,
it has so much to do with the culture and what is permissible. But if we're thinking about the aspects of it that we can control, and as you mentioned earlier, we will find ourselves in bad boss moments from time to time. What is the mea culpa moment, or how do you be reflective and then reapproach your team to kind of take onus for your behaviors?
I think most of us know when we're behaving badly. And I think the question is, can you sit with yourself and sit in that silence to realize that you just snapped at someone, walked out, slammed a book, ended the Zoom abruptly. Hopefully you didn't throw a Chanel shoe, right? Like these things, like most of us, I feel like know. And the question is, do we have enough humility to go back and say, I'm sorry I snapped at you. I just had a massive fight with my husband before I came into work. Or I'm sorry I was disengaged in this meeting. I am actually really anxious about this deadline that's due. I mean, can we do that for each other, right? Do we have the humility to say that and to say, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think it's so important in terms of the transparency to take that second step after you say I'm sorry, to give a little bit of context. Not that it's an excuse, but just to kind of share and be open about, the realities of life and like connect on most
And I
human
love that you mentioned
emotions,
that
right?
because it's not, people will say to me, well, this isn't a therapy session. It's not about trauma dumping. I'm like, no, but it's just giving people a window into what's happening in your world so they understand. You don't need to go into a monologue. You can just say something like, something's weighing on my mind personally, and I was distracted and I'm sorry. And let's get back to it. But then they have context and understanding. And also, we're all human. And to remind people of that.
Mm, thank you. I know we're just past time with you, and I want to be respectful of it. If you have an extra minute, I would like to do two things. One is just take a little photo because if we don't have it on the Instagram, it didn't happen. If you guys have your books handy, that will be the first thing. And then I also want to just share a testimonial with you afterwards. Sherry, do you have your book? Do you have your phone? Amazing. Okay, hold on. I always forget what the combination is on my computer to make this happen. There we go. Ready? Three, two, one. Gorgeous. Thank you. Okay, and one of our book club members, Michelle, who wasn't able to come, sent a little message to pass on, and I will ask her to put it as a review for you.
Thank you.
She wrote, I wanted to share some thoughts and comments about the book. I absolutely loved it. The book resonated deeply with me as I found myself relating to many of the situations described. It made me reflect on my own career and even question whether I'd played the role of a bad boss at times. The book was not only easy to read, but also truly inspiring. I will certainly share its valuable lessons with my team.
Oh, that means so much. Thank you. Oh,
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us and for your amazing insight. I see here in the comment section, we would love to have the link that you mentioned before. So if you want to
I
share it
will
to me
email
by
back.
email, I can pass it along.
Great, I will do that. I
And
just a note of gratitude. It means a lot, like for you all to be reading it. I've worked on the book for like 2 years, and so it's only been out 90 days. No, 60 days. It came out September 30th. It hasn't even been that long. So it's like so amazing that people are reading it and that you're finding value in it. It means a lot.
well, Frankie's, you're all trendsetters, so you will say that you read it when, right? And Mita, we look forward to reading your next book. And I will share the links to Reimagining Inclusion with everyone as well.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. And have a nice holiday season.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.
That was fun.
I'm going to stop the recording.